We're here with world-renowned forensic pathologist Dr. Cyril Wecht, and like many of us, he has some questions about what apparently is the resolution of the big Ben Roethilsberger case down in Milledgeville, Georgia. Dr. Wecht, you were quoted in both local newspapers as saying you were surprised that even though they apparently had some of what presumably is Ben Roethlisberger's DNA to work with, they said they didn't have enough. Why is that puzzling?
Yes, well, you know, you only need a minute amount, extremely tiny bit of material to perform a DNA. And so when they say that they can identify human male DNA, but they're not able to proceed with a DNA profile analysis, I find that difficult to believe. And as I saw reported in one of the newspapers today, they checked with one of the major DNA labs in the country, and that director agreed with me.
So, I don't want you to cast aspersions on anybody's character, but is that, to the average Joe like me, it sounds like the fix is in, if that's as puzzling
well,
as you say.
I don't know if there's a fix. I truly don't know that. I think overall a decision was made not to pursue the case. And by the way, I must say, I don't disagree with that decision in light of the girl's refusal to go along, her statement in the presence of her parents and her attorneys that she wants to drop the case. She's a 20-year-old girl. She's in college. She has a life ahead of her, and she has all of these things that would come out during the course of a trial, her drinking, her engaging in sexual banter, her extremely high level of inebriation reported at 0.23, 3 times the level of what is permitted for driving in most states in this country, and all of the activities of that evening. So it would be highly embarrassing, very damaging to her now and in the future. So I can understand the district attorney's decision not to pursue the case, but on the forensic scientific aspect of it, with regard to the DNA and with regard to the DA's own statement that the doctors at the hospital found a small laceration of the genitalia area.
That seems to have been brushed over to some degree.
Well, nobody has commented upon it at all, and yet the district attorney laid it on. I'm not aware, at least I haven't seen it in the newspapers I read, locally and nationally. Well, as far as I know, and I don't mean to be the least bit flippant or insensitive about this, but in the course of sexual activity with someone that presumably may have had sex, is likely to have had sex before and so on, you don't have a laceration of the genitalia. That just does not occur in the absence of a forcible, non-consensual act. It doesn't happen. And so when you put that together with the DNA business, you see that there really was a very solid case to pursue.
But do you think, let's say they were able to develop some DNA, even though they said they could not, and they have this evidence of laceration, without her testimony, because she apparently is unwilling to do it, can you see the logic in maybe dropping it anyway?
Yes. And okay. You keep coming back to there, so she's on the witness stand. What do you remember from that evening, ma'am? What kind of drinking did you do? Are you aware that your blood alcohol level was pegged at 0.23 and so on? And you're right. So where are they going to go? And that's why I say, and I will repeat, that I don't argue with his decision. But the fact that the decision may be an acceptable one when you consider everything overall does not in any way negate the fact that from a purely legal and forensic scientific standpoint, there indeed is a very solid case, which in 99 times out of 100 would be pursued.
And the laceration doesn't speak well of Ben Roethlisberger, assuming he's responsible.
Well, I got to assume the laceration occurred then and there. If somebody wants to suggest that, gee, how do I know it didn't occur some hours before or so on? No, I wasn't there, but I think that's extremely unlikely and being quite disingenuous to suggest that. So I think it's evidence that some kind of activity took place and not something of a gentle, consensual, acquiescent nature. Yeah.
Are you a Steelers fan at all? Can I ask you? And does it affect you?
I've had Steeler season tickets forever. Does it affect me? No. First of all, my tickets are used by my 4 kids and my grandchildren. I haven't been to a game in a while because I give the tickets to them. Yeah. Secondly, but even if I were using the tickets, no. I'm not super moralistic and hypocritical in that sense. One thing has nothing to do with another. I do have some questions about the relative degrees of moral indignation and ethical concerns manifested by the Rooneys, which seems to be pegged to the value of the individual player to the team. In other words, how much action will be taken and when. It would seem to depend a little bit on how significant that player is to the team.
Like a quarterback is a lot more significant than a wide receiver.
Yes, and a wide receiver can get 4 bites of the apple. Somebody else might only get 1 or 2. And then didn't we have a couple of situations of a very, very similar, if not directly analogous nature? One with a ball player and beating up his wife, and then another with another ball player beating up. But the second one, I think, was Harrison, if I'm not mistaken. And so I think the first one to beat up his wife, he's gone. Harrison was given a second chance, maybe come back for another bite of the apple. So, you know, the degree of disproportionality and inconsistency is amusing, to say the least.
Let me ask you this. Have you stopped beating your wife?
Well, since yesterday, since last night, yes.
Excellent. All right. Well, any final words on this? I guess it's case closed, whether it should be or not.
Closed except for 2 things. Roger Goodell, the NFL commissioner, and I'm not so sure that he is not going to mete out some punishment. There's no question he's going to talk about the situation in very harsh terms. And number 2, I predict that either he and or the Rooneys are going to insist on a couple of things. 1, psychological counseling. I predict that they're going to tell Ben Roethilsberger, you better get out there in the community, and I'd like to see you do some things with women's groups and talk to them and to other organizations. And I think there's a very strong likelihood that they'll suspend him for 2 games, which is, you know, a kind of a little
slap on the wrist,
on the rear, and ameliorates the degree of criticism that exists in the community toward the Rooneys for not taking more definitive, stringent action against him. So, but I would be willing to bet that he is going to be told, you must get some kind of psychological counseling, and he's going to be told, if you do anything like this ever again, I don't care if President Obama or the next president of the United States gives you an official pardon signed by unanimous agreement of the United States Congress, insofar as the NFL is concerned, you are out of here. You are out of here. That's what he's going to be told.
Dr. Wecht, thanks so much for talking to us today.
Thank you.
Dr. Cyril Wecht.